Next up, we are heading all the way out to Arizona with Ryan McDonald, who's the EDM Program Manager at the Maricopa County Clerk of the Superior Court. Ryan, over to you. We'll see you back here in a few minutes.
Good morning, good afternoon. So my name is Ryan McDonald. I've been working with OnBase for more than 19 years, starting off with OnBase version 3.2, which makes me feel really old. I work for the Maricopa County Clerk of the Superior Court. Maricopa County is the fourth largest county in the United States. And as you can imagine, we have quite a few court cases flowing through our courts, and we are the responsible custodians of the case files. We have more than 75 million documents in our OnBase system. We process hundreds of thousands of documents each month. In my role as the director of the EDM program, priorities include, delivering innovative solutions for our OnBase system and other solutions around document management, workflow, et cetera, improving customer access. And for that, a lot of times we use, workflow, Unity forms, document composition, so forth. And we, in general, strive to, reduce the need for people to come in person. Formerly, kind of before COVID, much of the services we offer had to be done in person, and COVID kind of helped kickstart a lot of that for us. So a couple of recent accomplishments for us are our online fee, deferral, and waiver solution, and an online exhibit marriage license portal. Both of these were kind of kicked off during COVID and have helped kind of springboard into some other things. Today, I'm going to be discussing our online application for deferral and waiver of court fees. As you can imagine, a good number of our court filings are for family court. That's a large need in our court system. And the filing fees for family court and civil court and others can be well over $300. So we wanted to, help fight the barriers that some of our litigants feel, and work towards helping them with the deferral and waiver application process for that. So with our online deferral and waiver solution, we wanted to have an automated workflow with electronic forms, integrate that with a cloud sharing or cloud-based file sharing service that then ultimately fed into our OnBase system. The overall start to finish of the project we completed in under 1 year, and the output, it increased security, consistency, and the time to process these items. The overall problem, and as I kind of touched on before, our deferral and waiver application, 80% of our cases are for family court. And of those, 70% are handled by the litigants themselves, the individuals. They don't hire attorneys. So that's an issue for us in that our customers, our litigants, they don't always know the correct answers, and they often try to seek legal advice, but we're not able to give legal advice in those situations. We can only kind of help make our forms and our processes more intuitive as much as possible. And our elected clerk is very passionate about enabling access to justice. That's kind of a mantra around our office, access to justice. And we really want to do everything we can to enable that. But at the same time, we need to be careful that we're not providing legal advice. As I mentioned, we tried to really help this during COVID because we had, we needed to limit people coming into our offices. But beyond that, we needed to really improve the manual approval and routing of these waiver and deferral forms. When they come in, they need to be routed to either our clerks, depending on the form itself and the data that's entered. They route to our clerks. Our clerks would make a decision based on poverty guidelines.
Ryan,
Yes,
I am so sorry to interrupt, but your slides aren't advancing.
they're not.
No, we're
Okay,
not seeing your slides.
sorry for that.
It's okay. Just wanted to let you know.
Gotcha. Did
There we go. You see that now.
that it? Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you for telling me. Okay, so that was kind of our problem statement. I'll hang on this slide for just a minute here. Again, 70% of our cases are family self-represented litigants of the applications we get for family court, and that's a big part of this program. So if I go to our objectives, our first objective was to implement a secure online portal that customers can apply for the waiver or deferral. And that must include an electronic form for data entry that would allow for file uploads. Part of the form, depending on your answers to certain questions on the form, additional documentation can be required. And in the original paper-based form, our litigants could download the form. They could even fill it out online, but they couldn't submit it online. They had to bring it into our file counters. And that left a lot of room for, mistyping things on the form, leaving things blank. Fields weren't not all required. And it just caused a lot of, difficulty in making sure the forms were filled out correctly and completely from that point forward. So that was a big objective for us to make the form intuitive and kind of simple to understand and read and navigate through. So part of that, what we strived for was an interview style form. The old form was just kind of a multi-page fillable document that left a lot of room for data entry, errors or fields being left blank. So the interview style form was a big thing for us to try to tackle and come up with so that we could meet our objectives with the project. Our second objective was to enable the form to have validations, to minimize data entry errors that I was just discussing, require specific data to be entered, and not allow for submissions with missing or invalid fields. And the form itself has dynamic fields with custom actions on the Unity form that change as you select certain elements on the form. So depending on what type of case you have, what you are filing for, whether it's a deferral or a waiver, different options on the form can lead to different outcomes on the ultimate output of the form submission. So for example, if you're a litigant that has supplemental security income or is on the food voucher program or temporary assistance for needy families, those can dynamically lead the form to more appropriate questions that are required or not required, as the case may be, for us to kind of effectively route the application for approval from there. A third objective was the ability to evaluate applications automatically for approval based on the poverty guidelines. Previously our clerks had to manually review a very in-depth financial section on the form and then make determinations based on that financial information. And as I mentioned, some of the other components on the form to determine whether this application is automatically approved or not.
Hey, Ron.
So, yes.
Again, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we're still having issues with your slides.
It's not advancing again?
It's still at the problem slide.
Gotcha. Okay, are you on objective 3 now?
Yeah, yes, we are.
Okay, I think when I have it the way I was trying to view it on top, it's not allowing that. So I'll stick it on the other screen. So apologize if I'm not looking directly at you here. Okay, so on to objective 3. We needed the ability to evaluate our applications automatically based on the poverty guidelines. So we've kind of taken these poverty guidelines. It's published annually to give us, kind of income limits and amounts that we can then use to determine whether someone qualifies for an automatic deferral or waiver, depending on their income levels and monthly expenses and things like that. So, formerly our staff would have to review the form submitted and then compare that manually to the published guidelines. But with this on-base solution here, we've been able to build in a table with those poverty guidelines and then corresponding rules that let us know that if a form comes in with these certain types requested and parameters to the form, then we can automatically approve deferrals and waivers in some cases based on those numbers. So that's been really helpful to our staff who formerly had to, look at these in detail. Now you can get an automatic approval and it routes through the rest of the process and generates the document from there. Another objective was that those that cannot be automatically approved would then go to our clerk's operations team and or to our court administration for a judicial officer to evaluate the request as well and the application for deferral or waiver. Okay, did my slide advance there this time to objective 4?
Yes, but we do have some people asking to see objective 1 and 2 again, if you don't mind
Sure.
sharing those real quick.
Sure, not a problem.
Thank you.
On. Yep. Objective 1 was just basically the big objective was to implement an online secure portal for the application for waiver or deferral from there. And it had to be an electronic form that would allow for file uploads. That was 1. And then objective 2 was to enable application form validations to minimize data entry errors, require specific data to be entered, and not allow for submissions with missing or invalid fields. So that just fits right into the Unity Forms wheelhouse, if you will, where we can, do the form validation and custom actions and so forth on the forms there. And then 3 is the one I just went through for the automatic approvals based on the poverty guidelines and or routing for approval beyond that if it doesn't fit within those guidelines. Then objective 4, once fully evaluated, depending on, regardless of if it was automatically approved or required further levels from our clerks and or judicial officers, we needed the system to be able to generate an approved or denied order that is then packaged up, and it had to fit certain guidelines to meet the standard of the original application form. So we're using on-base document composition to generate that approved or denied form, depending on whether it was approved or denied. So then we actually have a finalized order to send back to the filing litigant that they can then ultimately file with their case, because they don't always, the fees may be such that they literally can't file the case, or they may choose not to file the case at a later date. But this is kind of the first step in someone moving forward in the legal process there. Okay. So then on to the solutions. What we, based on our objectives, we kind of came up with these 3 improvements over the overall system using the new solution. So an interview style Unity form was developed. We tried really hard to make it intuitive and include all those field level validations, ensuring the forms are filled out completely, because that really helped our clerk staff no longer have to kind of follow up and answer questions and go hunting for things that were missing on the original submission of a form, or deny a form automatically because it's missing data and so forth. Second improvement was getting the income data from the form evaluated automatically against the poverty guidelines. So those get automatically approved in some cases, and that's been a huge time savings as well for our clerks there. And number three, the composed documents granting or denying, as they work through the workflow, they get composed and approved, and then they get automatically signed by the approving authority and then routed back automatically to the submitter for filing with their case. So, this saves people from having to come down in person. It speeds up the process. It saves our staff from having to, the old way was through, they would scan them in on a multifunction device, email them to our court admin team, and they would get approved there, or routed up to judicial officers for approval and then sent back. So as you can imagine, that was a pretty time-consuming process and required a lot of manual monitoring of the applications on our side to keep track of them. This way, they flow through, and we send links to all the approvers so that they know something new is waiting their approval. There's priority routing on some cases, depending on what the nature of the case is, and so on from there. So the solution was able to meet those needs and really provide a big impact for us. Here's a screenshot of kind of the first page you get to. You can link to it from our Clerk of the Court website and launch into this Unity form. It's embedded within our website, pretty easy to find, and it fits the look and feel of our website because it's embedded in there. And as I mentioned earlier, we tried to make it an interview style. The old form had multiple pages, and it had information. It had spaces for information, whether it was needed or not, depending on the options you select and what your circumstances are. You may or may not need to fill out the whole form. But as you can imagine, folks without a legal background or complete understanding of the process might fill out data that was unnecessary or assume something wasn't when it is. So the interview style lets the users, click through and fill out as much as possible through drop-down lists and required fields that dynamically change as they go through, to ensure that we get the relevant and pertinent information, and don't ask them to enter anything that's not relevant from there. Another page here is further down. Once you've answered some of those top level questions, then it automatically feeds into some of the lower sections where you can select whether you're applying for a deferral or waiver. In this case, I selected that I received supplemental security income, which automatically checks this waiver box. So that does, however, require some proof of participation. So they have to attach through the Unity form relevant documentation that then does get reviewed. So you can't just, you can't cheat the system and say I get a waiver automatically. We don't approve things, especially waivers, automatically, but they do get reviewed and verified from there. And then we have the oath of affirmation rather for the individual to sign it. So from here they hit submit, and then it creates the actual document once approved from there. So our results. We went live with this in March of 2022, so it's just been over a year now, and we've had very good success with it. We received more than 500 applications for deferral and waiver each month, and again, it's from our most vulnerable constituents who, are really struggling to navigate the court system, and this new automated solution helps people who a lot of times can't afford to take a day off to come downtown and stand in line at file counters and park and navigate, a complex downtown court system and things like that. So overall, big benefits are we enabled more strict controls over the entire process that kind of really helps to ensure we get forms filled out completely and adequately. We don't have to go back and forth and request additional information. So it greatly improved the accuracy of the applicant data for us to evaluate their applications. And then the automated routing ensures that they're routed correctly based on poverty guidelines to the appropriate and available judicial officer. So, depending on the case type, whether it's family court, it goes to a family court judicial officer. If it's civil, to a civil court judicial officer, and so on from that level. So, what's next for us? We're always trying to do, intuitive, innovative things in our group to simplify access to justice. And that a lot of times includes electronic forms and anytime access. Our forms are available 24/7 on our website. Couple of big projects we have working right now. We're working with DataBank, and we've just started the development phase of it to modernize an application, our minute entry creation application. My boss recently joked that it came out the same year that Tiger Woods won his first Masters golf tournament and a few other things. So it's 25 years old, back to 1997, our current minute entry solution. And we're working with DataBank to modernize that. We're using WorkView and some custom development and workflow, of course, to modernize that. And that's a very, very large effort, partnership with DataBank on that we're very excited about. We're also doing some robotic process automation. As I mentioned early on, we receive hundreds of thousands of documents every month that we are responsible for docketing onto the court's case management system. We are moving forward with an automation of that, so where we can take the on-base data, keyword data that we've captured on our documents and automatically docket them. That means, logging into the court management system. Our users have to log in and manually enter a lot of information from our documents. So we're working towards automating that process to where we can, feed those in automatically and save our staff some time on that front. And also another project is our criminal restitution order automation. That's been another kind of template-based form that, we get when someone's released from custody, and then it's time for them to begin. This is for criminal cases only. It's time for them to start paying any restitution or fines and fees that they were ordered to pay. We were manually creating the order documents for these based on templates. So we're looking at automating that with an on-base form and document composition from there as well. So I believe that is my last slide. I can pause here for questions. Apologize, I haven't been paying attention to the chat while I've been talking, but
thank you so much, Ryan. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Ryan?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I can hear you. Are you there?
Hey, Ryan, can you hear me? Okay, we're going to go into a quick Q&A. We do have some that have queued up on our on the Zoom. So reminder to everyone, please submit your questions through the Q&A, or we'll be taking questions live here as well. We're passing around a mic in the room. So thank you guys for your patience with that. Ryan, for our first question. So to clarify, the UI are external facing and created in OnBase Unity with the responses recorded directly into OnBase. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. Yeah, the Unity form is
Our
hosted.
next question is, do you use SaaS or hosted OnBase, and which release?
We're on premise with our on-base solution. We host it internally in our data centers. We're currently on version 18 of OnBase, but we are upgrading to version EP5 in the very near future.
One other question that's come in, I do want to make sure I make this note, but electronic copies of the presentations and video content will be released after today. So in case you missed anything, we'll make sure that it gets into your hands. So any other questions? Oh, we've actually had a couple more come in. So Sean would like to know, by hosting the form online, does this negate the ability to use AFKS?
I am trying to remember now. I think we still do have some autofill keywords available. Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of data sets. I don't know the answer to that, if we would be able to do that or not with this form. I'm sorry, that might. One of my teammates just chimed in and said we can.
Keyword sets still with the Unity form, so you should be fine if you're looking to do that.
Am I right? Thanks, Aaron. Another question that's come in through the Q&A is, do you have any paper forms or are they all digital?
We do still accept paper forms for this process, just because we don't want to obstruct, if somebody has a preference to do that, we will still accept it, but we try to encourage as much as possible the use of the electronic forms.
Other questions from our live audience or our virtual attendees?
Ryan, I guess the question is around some of the future use that you've indicated around robotic or automation. Do you think you guys are going to have the functionality within the on-base tool set to handle the automation needs, or are you going to have to use an RPA partner?
We're using an RPA partner for the actual bot flows. A tool called Nintex that we did work with DataBank on. That's really just to drive our screens in the case management system we're anticipating. But it's kind of a combination of things. We're looking to kick it off from on-base workflows using on-base data, but a lot of that data is also captured through our intelligent capture solution as well. So it's kind of a multi-pronged approach to it.
Another live question.
So using the Unity form, I know we're all into the electronic forms, but if you actually have to print it out, are there any issues with actually printing out a copy of the information that came in on that form?
In my experience, the Unity forms can look less, they don't always print very well. I'm trying to remember in this case, I think we've basically just left the older form available for submission, and then we would scan those in and route them that way. But the Unity form itself in this case, we weren't striving to make that printable, but the output of the actual order is printable and very well formatted and strictly formatted to match a required format on the order form itself.
I think that wraps up Q&A. Oh, I'm sorry, there are more questions in the chat. Thank you, Scott. Okay, let's take a look. It looks like one that's come in is, where is the Unity form hosted that records the info into OnBase?
So it's, we hosted it on our own clerk's website by using just the normal publish and embed functionality. So we do have an OnBase web server that is accessible for the posting of those forms from the outside. And that talks to its own application server. So that's kind of our method for making that pass through there. I forgot the second part of that question, Claire.
The second part was, where is the Unity form hosted that records the info into OnBase?
Gotcha. So yeah, it is on our clerk's website. You can actually see it if you, if you Google Maricopa County Clerk of the Superior Court. It's actually the first entry under the I want to menu item. I would just say, don't submit a bunch of bogus forms for us to then throw away, but you can view it there.
Okay, one other question. Oops. What is your intelligent capture and robotic platform?
Sure. Currently, we're using data cap for intelligent capture, but we're actually getting ready to move to a new tool from a company called CSI IntelliDact. And we've tested that, and it does a very good job of learning our different forms and document types and so forth from there. So we're using that for intelligent capture. And then our RPA platform is a tool called Nintex. And I'd be happy to, if anybody has questions after this, feel free to reach out to me and we can connect from there.
Hey, well, thank you so much, Ryan. That was great. Love all the questions. Oh, is there one more question? Oh, you guys are lighting it up. I love it. No, this is great. I just have a lot of devices, so thank you for your patience. Okay, regarding the paper forms, does staff have to review manually in order to deny, or is OnBase able to identify missing areas?
The paper forms are still very manually processed. And again, we try to, those have been very limited since the release of the online solution, but those would still be manually processed because they do have to reject, and we didn't build that into the new solution. We didn't build a process to route those in there.
Don't want to speak too soon, but looks like things are quieting down. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Ryan. That was great, very informative. Let's give it up for our first two presenters of the day, Chris and Ryan. Great job, everyone. I hope everyone's having fun so far. This has been great.